Those values are what really are the foundation for becoming a great leader. And I know that you know this, but others probably want to hear this. You're not born a great leader. Those are skills that you learn. And that's the beauty of what we're doing. We're talking about how do you grow and acquire new skills that make you feel like you're reaching towards your success, having the impact you want to make.
Welcome everyone to Top Mentor Podcast. And today we have Ronni here, which is a high performance and leadership coach. So hi Ronni.
Hello. Great to be here. Thank you, Victor.
Awesome to have you here. So let the audience know who are you and what are you doing right now, and we will dive deeper into what's been your career until this moment.
Sure. I come from over 25 years in corporate America, leading teams. But I started, very small, working my way up. And I think what's been exciting is I worked in retail. I've owned small businesses. Now I'm entrepreneurial as a coach. So I've seen all sides of the work world, right? And I've balanced work, family. My children are all grown adults now. So I can say I've seen a lot in these years. So I love helping people as a coach, helping them to not only perform their very best at work. If you have a promotion you're going after, or maybe a new role and you're leading a team and you haven't done that before, those are really amazing people to work with because they're ready to grow. They're ready to try new things and are open to some of the concepts. So that's where I am. And I'm passionate about seeing people reach their potential or reach towards their potential, just seeing them be fulfilled, because really happiness comes from those steps of growth. That's where happiness comes from. So that's important to me. Thanks for having me, by the way. This is it's an honor to be able to talk to your audience. So thanks.
Thanks a lot. It's been a pleasure to have someone like you here on the podcast. So as you mentioned, the part of the road, it's almost when the beauty comes, that I say, instead of what the target, also the target is. When you look back and see where you were, where you are now, you are in this progressing. I think the beauty is also on the on the road.
Yes.
When was your bottom, and when are you now at the top? You know that maybe the bottom will come again, but it won't be that low.
Right.
So
You come with experience. You come with the self-trust. You believe in yourself and your ability. So even though you might move up and then find yourself at the bottom again because you're in a new context, you know so much more about yourself. You're stronger. You trust your decision-making. Your values become more clear, right? Those values are what really are the foundation for becoming a great leader. And I know that you know this, but others probably want to hear this. You're not born a great leader. Those are skills that you learn. And that's the beauty of what we're doing. We're talking about how do you grow and acquire new skills that make you feel like you're reaching towards your success and having the impact you want to make.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, I assume, or my thought is there are certain people that are more prone to take action than others, but you would also learn to take action. Like for example, in my case, I am a very, think ahead person, so I need to have everything planned ahead. Lately, due to, life circumstances, I think that they have to take action much faster. Not because, and I know that I may make more mistakes, but I also know that it will make output. If you think only and you don't take any action, you have anything to have an output from.
Exactly.
You would then learn.
And how are you going to iterate? How are you going to make it better if you never finish the thing and move forward? So yeah, I feel like that applies to so many professional fields, right? You take action, you learn from what worked and what didn't work. And definitely in the tech and software and IT, yeah, for sure. And engineers, I work with engineers and a lot of tech people, and the processes are in place. But if you're not, looking towards taking action and learning from the action, and incorporating the strengths of the people around you, I think is a big part. Because I think it's easy to say, I want to control what I control because that feels safe. But then you might get into a project where you need to lean on other people. That can be a part where leadership can become, a little uncertain for someone at that point. Because now you're like, I have to trust this person. They don't even know what I know, right? So I feel like that's something uncharted for some people. What are your thoughts
Yeah,
on that?
yeah. So I wanted to ask you on that because I'm not yet on that point to delegate some stuff, but I'm going through it, and I feel like I will do sometime soon. So, what do you think is best, or what idea to be able to know what to delegate
Hmm.
and how to delegate it? Because I see that, especially for new people on teams, maybe when you're, growing fast on a startup, or maybe, on a small business,
Hmm.
you need people,
Yeah.
but you don't know how to transmit the knowledge properly.
Hmm.
So how do you think, let's say in general, I know this is very specific, but what should be an approach or a guidelines that people should follow in order to, delegate, know how to delegate some stuff and what to delegate?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that is like, if leaders don't delegate, they're going to burn out, right? And you're not going to get the result you want, even on that first project, even before you burn out. If you're trying to maintain control too much of the duties, you are going to learn the hard way, probably. So, first of all, it's knowing your people. So, knowing their strengths as far as what they like to do and what they do well. So learn your people, right? Learn what motivates them, because it's not just can she execute and does she have the operational background, but she or he, but it also is, how does this person work? Do they get flustered and stressed out? Do they need collaboration? Do they need frequent check-ins? So know your people, to me, is the first thing. So if you're walking into a whole new situation, you're going to have to do some learning, observing, and maybe not handing things off super quickly without some extra information. So learn your people and take time for them to understand who you are as a leader. Like, what are my expectations? What do I thrive? What kind of environment do I thrive in? Do I want a lot of contact and information, or do I want you to just run with it and just let me know if you get stuck? Like, I would communicate very clearly how I like to lead. And for me, I would say, you know what, each of you are here because there's a reason that you're here. You've earned this spot in some way. So I'm going to trust you. Trust is huge, right? Offer trust and you're going to receive some. And it's a dance, you'll have forward and backward movement with that. But so I would say let them know who you are and also find out who they are and what makes each of us work at our optimal. And then as far as how to delegate, expect that the work is going to be done about 80% to what you want it to be. Don't look for 100%. And I know in some areas that are very specific and there's 100% right, 100% wrong, I know that exists. I'm not going to deny that. But as far as being able to say, are they going to do it exactly how I would do it? It's not going to happen, and you're just going to
Yeah.
frustrate yourself. You're going to frustrate your team if you expect it to be done your way. There's not always a right and wrong, right? And it's easy to get into the thinking of there's a right way to do things. My way is the best way because I've already done this before. I have the experience, right? It's very easy to think that way. But if you want a team where there's synergy, meaning what? The meaning that output's going to be greater than if it were an individual. The output's going to be greater as a team, then you have to that openness to say, okay, they have strengths that I don't have. They have a viewpoint that I've never considered. So being open and adaptable and having a lot of communication that isn't judgmental. Because I think as soon as someone who works for you feels like you're judging as you're giving feedback, they feel, they don't want to disappoint their boss. Most people don't, right? That's not how they walk into work ready to do an amazing job. So feedback that is honest, but also considering the other person's side of it. So having that empathy for the person who's hearing it is powerful, and it builds over time. You're not going to have everything go perfectly every time. That just isn't real with people interacting. But if there's a foundation of trust, great communication, really listening, I think if more leaders listened, that workplaces would be so different, because listening is a skill and it's not always the natural skill for every person. So those are some of the things. What else? What else on that? Any other?
Yeah. So I am recalling also a podcast that I saw. I or I don't know if it was a YouTube video or a podcast. So there's a guy here in Spain which is getting, famous lately in YouTube, which is an entrepreneur which has like an empire of companies related
Yeah.
to multiple areas, energy and stuff. And he mentioned in terms of the listening, the cleaning team, lady or seniors or whoever cleans the office knows better what happens in the office than the boss. So it means that if you want to get real feedback from what's going on your office, like who is getting late, who is performing the best, get real feedback, you can ask the cleaning lady or the janitor or whoever. What do you think about that?
I think that makes perfect sense because they're the ones, their mouth is closed, right? And their ears are open. That's just the nature of where they are. So, yes, that's, listening and also listening for what the person is not overtly expressing. So they could be like, oh, yeah, thanks for handing me that project. But then you see their body language and their body language is, closed off or they won't make eye contact. Like, look at those cues. Like, our brains are wired to pick up on those messages if we just slow down enough to say, what is this person I'm talking to really thinking about this? What are they really feeling about this? Why are they angry seeing me today? And maybe they aren't angry. Don't assume, at least ask, right? So, open questions, open-ended questions would be like, all right, so I handed you this project and I saw you hit these first two steps of it. How would you say it's going? Very open, very open. And then you're going to be able to get some real information to work with and look at the body language and feel their tone. So something could be lost in our email world, right? Our emailing and texting, you don't get the tone. So even a phone call is better than nothing, right? If you can't see your people face to face or on Zoom, texting and email is probably to me like your least favorite way to me, the least effective way of really assessing where they're at. So, I mean, some things make sense by email, obviously, when it's information transmitting. But if it's a check-in with your people, that's very valuable to hear the tone and also find out what's going big picture, like how maybe they're managing their work, but how is somebody else's work affecting them? You want to hear that and hear both sides objectively, you know, find out what's working, what's not. And maybe you can't solve everything, but at least you're aware. Like, getting aware is the first step. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that, I don't know if you share this, sometimes maybe leadership, people tend to focus more on what they have to say because they have to say maybe a lot of things and they have to communicate better because also see in corporate, either big or small, that the communication, the information loss on the communication hierarchy, it's high and it's difficult to solve. So that what, person A that is above me tells me and how I transmit that to person C, if that is below me, if I don't understand it properly, then you tend to bombard people with information. And instead, you are not listening to what they are saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it tends to happen. So, okay, this person told me this, but I am not active listening to it. So I cannot process everything. There are certain people that talk more than others. But if you tend to listen and active, try to understand and process it while they tell to you, it's very important in terms of how the communication goes and how the information you can perceive as a leader, I guess.
Yeah, that active listening. And then you say, let me make sure I got this right. Let me get this
Yeah.
clear. Here are the top two priorities. Is this correct? Confirm it. Yeah. Because then they might
Yeah.
not have even known how their communication came off.
Yeah, and also because so you imagine the situation that you are communicating some idea or you're getting some idea communicated, the moment that you say, let me know if I understand correctly, and then you repeat what they, not repeat, but you say what you have understood, and then you let the other person say first that you have listened to them, which I think is,
Mhm.
and second, that's the the view that you have in your head of what they told to you, which is obviously not going to be the same that you have. difficult to have like the exact same. It's
Yeah.
almost impossible. So this way you can get to a middle point where everyone knows what they're doing.
Yeah, that's powerful communication. Is efficient, right? Or you can say, okay, can you bottom line this for me? Bottom line this. What's the essential that I need to focus on, right? You could ask them because maybe they haven't figured out what the bottom line is.
Yes. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, how did land it to this now? What's your story? I would like to hear because I find it very interesting, like how someone gets to, coach high performance teams or, people or even board areas, because I assume giving advice to someone that is running a like, 1,000 people company, maybe, could be, you know, some talents. So I would like to know what's been your journey to get to that.
Definitely. So I started working very young. I was in a family with several kids and I wanted to buy clothing. So I started working super young. That was my motivation as a teenager. I was like 14 years old. So I think I had a strong work ethic and felt very responsible. So that always was like a foundation I started from was how do I contribute the most in this work setting? And it didn't matter what kind of company it was. I just had this desire to contribute and take pride in what I offered. Basically, don't stop till you're proud. That
Yeah.
motto, don't stop till you're proud. I did that and worked hard. I sort of had a sports background. My father raised me like my brothers. I was the only girl, but my father pretty much raised me like my brothers. So if I was going to do anything, it was with anybody, it was sports. Like I just did like, 5 or 6 or 7 different sports. So you get this mentality of how do I improve even just 1% better than last time? How do I pull this together? Even if this person's having a bad day, how do I make it work for all of us? So I think the sports mindset is a great foundation for performance coaching. And I learned from some great people. And I had some who weren't maybe great teachers, but you learn from the ones who aren't great as well. So I
Hmm.
learned what to do and what not to do by leadership, maybe in sports and then at early jobs. And then I just started taking our responsibilities and moving up. And then eventually, I was leading my first team I led. I was 21 years old. I was in leadership. And I will be honest, I didn't know how to lead. I didn't know. Nobody really trained me. It was like, figure it out. And if A doesn't work, then do B. And if B doesn't work, ask somebody what C could be. I was trial and error, I would say, when I was young. I studied psychology in college. That was
Hmm.
my degree because I always wanted to know, why do people choose what they choose? Why are they acting this way and not that way? So I always had this curiosity about human behavior. So psychology was my focus of study, and I loved that. It gave me a mind for understanding data and looking at things maybe through a different lens other than what is surface level. So
Hmm.
that was a foundation early. And then I think mm, being a parent young, I was a young parent. I have 3 children grown, like I said. I knew eyes were on me. I felt like a role model from day one. I'm like, everything I do and don't do correctly or do well, they're watching, they're learning. So I think that gave me the motivation to be the best leader in my work life and in my home life because I'm like,
Hmm.
the eyes on me. The eyes are on me. And I wanted good things for my people who worked for me and good things for my children. Compassionate heart always drove me. I think that never left at any phase of things I was doing. And so working through different levels of companies, because I was able to get results, I was able to bring people together, pull from each person, their maximizing their abilities and strengths and developing them. So if you can find people who are ready to work hard enough to get promoted, those are like your best people, right? If they want next level, they're going to be very open to saying, how can I do this better? What skills do I need to acquire? That type of hungry person is a great person to have on your team. So I would look for hungry people. I didn't always rely on experience, but I would look for motivated, ready to learn kind of people. And then values. I think the values I led with helped me to be successful at these companies because then I could get in and understand the company culture and the lay of the land, maybe the politics, but I knew who I was in those settings and that didn't change. So I knew that if I was going to own a mistake, I'm going to say, hey, this didn't come out how we planned, but this is what we learned from it and what we're going to do next time. Or if I knew I wanted a certain position that I was working towards, I would find out, who do I need to learn from? Who do I connect with? Find that mentor in the company. And those sorts of things served me well. And then how did I leave corporate and become full-time coaching? It was me realizing I could reach more people and have more impact by getting out of the corporate, structure
Yeah.
and getting into this, like, really, it's like a big ocean. Like, it's an ocean of anybody who would like to work with me can learn how to be better at their role, have more fulfillment in all the areas. Because we look at a person holistically, right? How are you, not just in your career, but how's your energy, your health, your excitement about the future? How's your, how are your relationships, your finances? Like, it's a whole person that I'm dealing with when I talk to them. And that's what makes it very beautiful, because you see, maybe they start to realize, oh, my purpose. I haven't really been working on things that go towards my mission or my purpose. And then their life can take a whole new direction when they're driven by the meaning of what we're doing, the meaning of what they're doing. So that's sort of the philosophy behind why I became a coach. I just love to contribute in the greatest way possible. And I feel like, I've had a lot of diverse experience with so many types of people and a lot of challenges. Nothing along the way was easy. And looking back, I am very grateful that my path involved a lot of challenge. It really did, and I think a lot of people will say that about their path. I had so much that I overcame or even just worked through that I'm like, I want to help other people so they don't get stuck, give up. Maybe they fought for this degree and maybe they're fought for this position or they work so hard, but then they get there and they're like, I don't like this. I don't like how this is going. That's where working with a coach, I would say, let's look at what's happening now, but let's look at bigger picture and let's look forward. The cool thing about coaching is that I don't have to have been a programmer or a tech person or an engineer to be able to teach the principles that help people to bring out their performance. So it's not straightforward. Mentoring is somebody who's already done it, right? Like, I could mentor someone who's owned a small business, I could mentor somebody in retail who worked their way up in leadership. But as far as someone who's in another completely different field, it's coaching. It's saying, let's look at skill set, goals, your inner life, and what do you want to transform to go forward. So that's the cool thing about coaching. It's more of a dynamic, collaborative relationship, and every day is different. The people are amazing. So yeah.
Believe that you meet. This is also happening with, and some of it's and also you would meet a lot of different people with different stories. So like it makes feel it almost make life more fulfilling
Yeah.
in terms of, because you get a lot of stories and then before you're like, okay, you talk with your friends and they are almost the same stories. Not that they are bad, but they're different. But now you're getting all these experiences like, okay, this guy is doing this, or this girl is doing this startup, which is crazy. Passionate about it and to help them because they are fun and they are different from you. So I that in your case you would like almost crazy any crazy situation that, okay, how is this person running this? Be someone mounting a crazy company, a thing like that. I don't know if you can share any specific stories
Okay. Yeah.
that are fun.
Yeah. Some things that maybe have surprised me, like things that I work with people on. Yeah. So, like, for example, one client maybe came to me wanting coaching about, how do I navigate my company reorganizing? We're going through this big reorg. I have to get rid of people, so it's very stressful, right? I have to, cut some employees and deliver this news of how the company's going. So a lot of change to navigate. So obviously stress and fear and things like that. But it's interesting. What we ended up coaching about more was more of like the internal world. Like, how do I want to show up in my meetings to feel like I'm being truly myself and really making the impact and leaving the legacy that I want. So something maybe unexpected, like it becomes more about maybe their emotional world or the meaning of, wait, am I being the father that I want to be to my children? So we end up coaching about things that weren't even the first reason that we sat down. So I find that to be very fascinating and also rewarding, because you see, the cool thing is, if I were coaching you, Victor, and you said, why can't this change? I want this to be different. And we start examining it, you might find that there was a message you've been giving yourself, something you assumed to be true. And then you find out in talking that it's not necessarily a true thing, right? Maybe it's a rule we lived by, a limiting belief, really, a limiting belief, but we don't even know it's a limiting belief till we start talking about it. And, like I had a client who said, I work so hard and pack my day with appointments, meetings, and lead things and say yes, right? They take more, because the role that they were operating from was, I need to be stressed out and work hard in order to be successful. But wait, how true is that? Do you have to be so stressed out and never caught up to really be successful? Is that true? So we started examining that message. So from there, everything can change. What you delegate, who you delegate it to, how you schedule your week. Do you schedule in some white space and some creative time and some strategic thinking time? Like, do you give yourself that so that you aren't 100% spent at the end of your day or your week? So you have something to give to the other parts of your life. So questions like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I can also relate them on the busy part. Like, I think this applies a lot of people have, you see the schedule is mini,
Yeah.
and then most of those meetings most of them could be an email, not, you could delegate them. And also, having a busy schedule doesn't mean that you are being productive,
That's right.
just being busy.
Yes.
Because I have thought about something recently, because I follow which did this trick on Twitter, which was a to-do list, but instead to do is to do. So you only put two things.
Oh,
This way, you just write them down on a post, and then you only have two things to do. Because, and I think it relates to the Pareto principle in terms of 80%, 20% of the things that you do provide the 80% of the value.
yes.
Don't know if you would probably have more experience on that. You prioritization of tasks, for especially when you are like high performance leader people,
Yeah.
is, if not the most important, because I don't know, one of the most important things.
Yeah.
What do you
What
say?
you say no to impacts your life more than what you say yes to, right? So you can say, okay, that's not important, or that's not for me. I can give it to someone else, or I can take it off the list completely. And I think it does come down to habits that are powerful. For example, does a person start their day with a very clear intention of, what are the things I must do? Prioritize them, like you said. And not only that, but how do I want to do them? Do I want to show up at this meeting in the morning being, you know, serious and powerful? Do I want to show up at this meeting in the morning being motivating and inspiring and happy? You set an intention before each of those major events and changes your whole day. It changes your whole day, because now you feel like you have agency and that you're experiencing life as you choose to experience it. Yes, there are going to be things that happen that you can't plan for or control. This is life. Change is the only constant for us, but we choose how we experience them. So I think that's a powerful principle, to say, the day didn't unfold the way I wrote it on my calendar. However, I was, enthusiastic and inspiring, and my team came up with a new solution this morning because I was inspiring. Like, that's amazing, right? If you do that every day or every meeting, life feels completely different. Even if you do have a lot on your plate, that's the reality. We have a lot on our plate. I have a quote I love. It's called, it's the idea of choice in the matter. We always have choice. So choice is the freedom to see things as we desire, feel what we want, and live as we create our lives to be. So I always go to
That's
that.
awesome.
Yeah, we always have choice. No matter what the circumstance is, we have choice in those matters. Yeah. Did I answer that question fully or was there more to it?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
No, it was an awesome answer. Yeah, it almost without words. So I was thinking about like also what you mentioned about we always have choice, and also it's very different attitude that you with what you confront an event. So I believe that the same event to different people could be handled in two different ways and make a lot of difference in terms of the output. I
Mhm.
would so
Mhm.
that you know you are going to get contrary events, challenges, pushback from anyone. The way you deal with it, I think, is core output that you're going to get afterwards. You always feel like you have, we always have, I think everyone has experienced this person that for some reason is going to push back at you, and gets back to you, bad tones, I would say. You have the reason of, I hate this guy. And you are nervous about getting an email about this person and you're thinking, but it's getting on your head.
Mhm.
And I feel that's so bad feeling that you need to switch. Okay, I'm going to the way depends on the way that you want to focus it. But you can say this guy is not going to be is going to get like it's impossible. You can reverse it to say I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it.
Mhm.
Not in a bad way, but in a he will give up for sure. I'm
Mhm.
going to be the hardest one out there, something like that. So the way that we process events, it's key to the output that we get, I think.
Definitely. That's how we create the reality we're living in, for sure. Our response to things. Definitely. There's a program I take clients through. It's called Positive Intelligence, and it's 6 weeks of learning how to say, I'm going to stop some of my old patterns of thinking that sabotage my performance, sabotage my relationships or my well-being. They're old messages that crop up just as like you said, like an instinct, like that first thought where you're like, uh-oh, I'm afraid to see what his email is going to say. Completely natural. Our brains are wired to protect ourselves. However, that goes on overdrive and can hurt us. So then we don't take steps forward sometimes, or we don't make the choice that really would serve us and the bigger picture better. So in positive intelligence, you go through these small exercises of you intercept that thought that's not serving you and you replace it very mindfully. It is about becoming very present moment aware. So it is an exercise that you build on, doing like a little bit of practice each day in an app. It's a really cool app and it gives you points. It sort of has this motivation built in where you build your mental fitness muscle. But the whole idea is the more you do it, the easier it becomes. You get stuck in that negative mode such a short time, much shorter time, the more you've practiced it. And you end up operating in this mode that's very powerful that comes from within. Like you said, that desire to say, okay, I'm not going to give in. I'm going to be determined because that's going to work in this scenario. That's like a conscious decision, a choice to make there. You can either have empathy for the other person and be like, all right, instead of getting mad for this person at this person, I'm going to see what's really happening with them. So kind of, de-escalate. That might be one approach. You might explore and say, okay, what's really happening here? What could I learn from this? Or let me be curious about this and make it part of, some sort of adventure or exploration. So you could explore
Mhm.
and be curious. And that's also a powerful place. Think about kids. When children are playing, they're using curiosity. They're not saying, "Oh, that's not how you build a sandcastle." Maybe they're not saying that. I don't know. Depends on the person, but they just say, "Okay, this is my castle, and here are the characters living it." That playfulness, that curiosity, and then maybe it's the mode of a powerful mode of let's activate. Okay, we've done all the decision making, we've done the research. Let's just move into pure action. Maybe that's the powerful place. So, but it's all about choosing what you want to bring to that moment. So that's part of the positive intelligence program, and definitely works for any level of the company that you're at, and for all parts of your life. So I love that program, and that's been something that works no matter who you are. It works because it works. You start where you are. So yeah.
I think that also when things that we do or the specific techniques that we apply are able to be applied on multiple contexts and are easy to adapt to the person. I
Mhm.
think that's when they good. I mean, you can also have specialized system to solve certain actions. You could also have a framework adapts to any circumstances with more or less accuracy, but it helps a lot of people. And I believe that for you, this system that you mentioned allows you to get a lot of different stories and then also to polish it each time that you get a new client. You say, okay, this might be for CEOs, and this could be tweaked for small businesses, and this could be tweaked for employees. And I think with like a lot of feedback in your system.
Yeah, I like the flexibility, and because I'm not someone who wants to put a mold onto somebody and say, here's the right thing. Because I don't know what's best for you in your work setting. You know what's best, and it's sort of unearthing. So discovering the answer that's already there and then giving the person the confidence to take the action, the steps. So having a coach is the beautiful part because you're not doing it alone. We aren't meant to do these things alone in life.
Yeah. Like, it's always good to have a little bit of help, even though you like it or not.
Yeah,
It will fast and it will make it faster.
that's right.
The path. Sometimes, sometimes I think people maybe rely too much on. Can you tell me the answer? But if you're stuck, eh, sometimes coach or a mentor could help you a lot because they can have gone through that. They can provide you some tips to say, especially they provide you with the tools and not with answers
Yes.
or of answers that they can learn from. So I am firm believer in terms of tech. Example that if you have the answer and you reverse engineer, you learn a lot from it
Yeah,
to reverse engineer how it works instead of copy pasting.
that's right.
But also if you have the tools, okay, use this and that, and you have an example, it's like, okay, do I'll do it again.
I love that. I
Again.
do that same thing, even just in my own like problem solving, right? Like, okay, let me work backwards from the solution and reverse engineer it. And honestly, like I am a coach and I pay someone to mentor me on things. Like I believe in the power of what we do
Mhm.
so much that I invest in my own development. So if I have a client and I'm saying, here's the amount it will cost for you to work with me, and here's why it will work great. I have no trouble asking because I already know the value because I do the
Yeah.
same from someone else. I get value from somebody else's expertise. So I always tell clients, I pay a coach. So
Yeah, you need to buy, the service and also to buy in terms of money, value that you're going to in terms of help. And you would probably translate it into money as well. Like if your business is improving, it will provide enough to compensate and, grow it 100%. So I wanted to ask you, what's going to be your plan for the next year? Like, what do you have in mind in terms of your projects, and what do you see, what foresee in this 24 and 25 you'll be doing?
Oh, yeah. So I definitely want to collaborate through this year. That's my word of the year is collaborate because I find that it is energizing to find out what other
Hmm.
coaches and mentors are working on and then learning from their audience too. Hey, here's what's happening in the market or here's what's happening in their work dynamics. It's educational for me, but also very exciting to say, who can I help and who can I learn from? So collaboration for sure is huge. And because leadership is my theme, leadership affects every person because either you have a boss you answer to or you have other people who are answering to you. Even if you're an entrepreneur who's solo, you have to lead yourself first. That's the thing when I work with, it doesn't matter what level of the company the person's at. First is self leadership Are you regulating your emotions? Are you communicating in an effective way? Are you seeing your people as actual humans? They're the human factor. They're not just a line item. Like, to me, those are the things that make a great leader, and being aware of the social environment. How are people interacting, or are they interacting? So I think those parts play into it as far as how I see leadership. So yes, collaboration. So it's taking the form for me of podcasts and webinars to be able to get the word out and also learn from what other people are doing. And I love the interactive types of settings. So the webinars I've started to do are more open questions, like very interactive, because I found from the audience, like I'd ask, I would do pre-work to find out what they preferred. They want to hear real life case studies, just like you said,
Yeah.
Ronni, tell me your story. How did you get here? They love real life case studies, and they love being able to interact and say, hey, this is what's happening like right this moment in my struggle. What shine some light on this right now in the webinar. So I love that. And then I want to coach groups. So I don't have this yet, but in 2024, I would love to have some group programs where we meet monthly, and then they help each other through, Slack channel, and just create community, because I feel like communities definitely are a strengthening force. It's too easy to get isolated and feel like you're the only person with these particular struggles. But then when people start talking about it, there's so much shared wisdom that can come out. So that's what 2024, the next, at least the next quarter of it, is looking like. And the other part is speaking. I want to speak at organizations. I want to speak at conferences and meetings and things, especially for women in technology and women in tech and engineering. Sorry, I would love to do a lot more speaking and kind of hone in on where that can take me, because I like the human contact part,
Mhm.
and I like the travel. So I think that would be great. Great for getting the messaging out, and also just seeing more client exposure. So that's what the rest of
Yeah.
the year looks like for me. Yeah.
No, that looks awesome. I believe that there's a format now that may fit you, which is kind of the cohort courses, like they're more or less course, but it's not a pre-recorded; it's live.
Mhm.
So for example, you have, like you mentioned, these groups
Yep.
online or on premise, and then you would show them your course that is 5-6 session long,
Mhm.
and you would be able to teach them, and then you will get feedback on real time, like it would be a small class of people.
Yeah.
I think could fit your
I
case, because you can group like CEOs or a small business in your area
mm,
that you can group in as a place. It's small, and you will this session for leadership. I think it's system, because you also maybe the more valuable information, and you may be able to say make it at a lower price
mhm.
because it's shared within more people, and you still get the same information. And you would probably have the same questions at the beginning and a lot of valuable information. And this way, I think it's also a good format.
Yeah, I totally that's my plan. So perhaps by mid-year I'll have that up and running, and just the webinars, and learning the marketing piece on LinkedIn. Like, that's been a huge learning phase, and it's fun. Like, I now actually look at it almost like a game. I almost have gamified it for myself, and it's fun. So I've met a fantastic people who inspire me, and so that's part and parcel of it, like growing the audience, getting those groups going, and speaking, virtually and in person, and getting those clients, getting productive, not busy, right?
Yeah, yeah, totally.
I like it.
Yeah. So yeah, just to finish it up, you tell the audience where they can find you and what you can offer to them.
Sure, sure. So my website is ronnielandeck.com. So it's just those two, ronnielandeck.com. And then on LinkedIn, I'm there as well. And you can share the link for LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure, and they can connect. I love to connect there, and, message people and find out what is it you want to hear me talk about, or see posts on, and just, to get to know the world that people are living in, so that I can serve better. what I can offer is an amazing chance to have a one-on-one. I would love to have a discovery call and just say, what is it that I can help with? And tell me where you're coming from, and how your situation could be affected by my framework. I have a framework that is, like you said, it has guide rails to make it effective and organized, but there's so much freedom within this framework to make it perfect for that person, how they learn. Because every person learns slightly differently. And I value that. Some people want to say, let me try this week and I'll let you know. Some people say, send me the article. I'm going to read it and apply it. It's so, everybody learns differently. Or maybe we have a role play in our one-on-one discussion and say, okay, how are you going to ask your boss that question? Let's practice it now. So much can happen in the one-on-one session. So I'd love to offer a free discovery call to anybody who would love to reach out. And my calendar link is right there on my website.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I will put those links in the description, and I hope that people reach out to you and help from good professional.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so thanks a lot for coming, Ronnie. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. I love talking to you. It's fantastic, Victor. And I wish you huge success too in your journey.
Yeah, thanks a lot for that, and people like you would be for sure. So yeah, thanks a lot, and until next.
Thank you.